In our continuing coverage of the killing of Trayvon Martin, the trial of George Zimmerman, we are joined again by criminal defense attorney Paul Martin and NYU journalism professor Pamela Newkirk. Thank you for hanging around and watching the trial. It is ongoing right now. For most of the morning, there was an argument being made to Judge Deborah Nelson about whether or not a crime scene animation, recreation animation, would be allowed in. They finally stopped that hearing to start with some testimony, and now we see on the stand right now Dr. Benjamin DeMaio, who is a private pathologist, and we anticipate that he is going to testify about the gunshot that was inflicted upon Trayvon Martin. We'll listen to that in just a little bit, but let's just chat, first of all, before we go back to that, about sort of what has happened up to this point. I know, Paul, you've been very outspoken about the job or lack thereof the prosecution has done so far in this case. Are they forced to do a rebuttal case after the defense rests?
They're not forced to do a rebuttal case, but I would hope that they would do a rebuttal case after the defense rests. Maybe they're holding back on evidence that they have for the rebuttal case so they can really bring home what it really means to prosecute a case.
Indeed. And what does it tell us, Pamela? You know, the fact that the prosecution took almost 3 weeks to put on their case. It looks like the defense is going to do theirs. They said when they started on Friday they're going to be finished by tomorrow, Wednesday, so 4 days. What does that tell us about this case?
I mean, it's troubling, and what Paul is saying is even more troubling, that they're mailing it in, that he doesn't believe that they're seriously prosecuting this case. And it reminds us that it took 6 weeks before there was even an arrest of Zimmerman. And, you know, so many of us are looking to this team to prosecute this case, and to even think that that's not happening and that there's willful negligence in the prosecution of this case is very disturbing.
Well, I think you have to remember that long after this trial is over, the prosecution still has to deal with the Sanford Police Department, the Sanford detectives, the individuals that live in that neighborhood. And we know that this case was brought to the forefront because of public opinion.
Exactly.
And that's who they're trying this case for, is to appease the public. We tried the case. It didn't come out as we expected. Let's move on.
It's so interesting, and of course we've been talking about this throughout the entire duration of this case, is about the charges that were brought against George Zimmerman. He was charged with second-degree murder, which raises the bar for what they have to prove. They have to prove ill will and spite, as opposed to perhaps charging him with manslaughter. Why wouldn't they from the beginning? And let's talk a little bit about the procedure. Can the jury still consider that charge, a reduced charge, when this is all over?
Well, normally at the end of a trial, the prosecution can ask that a lesser included be submitted to the jury. I'm not sure if they've made a determination if that is going to take place, because it really causes the jury to then
doubt the case.
And they'll say, well, listen, we don't have to convict him of first degree or of the higher degree, but we can compromise and convict him of manslaughter.
So it would pretty much be an admission that they have not sufficiently prosecuted the case.
I think it's a way you cover yourself. I don't like to use the word an admission. I think that they'll cover their behind so that in the event that they know they can't get a murder conviction, the jury can look back and say, we can convict him of manslaughter.
But I wonder if the jury will process it this way, because, you know, we've all been out here on the outside, exposed to media, hearing all these legal analysts about what this would mean if they were asked to consider a lesser charge. But if they're given this option, I wonder if they would process it that way, that, oh, this means the prosecution didn't prove the case for the charge that they brought, or if they say, okay, well, there's evidence for this lesser charge, so we'll go for this.
Well, it really depends on the charge that the judge gives. Normally, during the end of the trial, the judge will give a charge and say, listen, in the event that you do not believe the prosecution has proved these particular elements, you may consider a lesser included, and she will, in this situation, will give the elements of that crime. So if it really depends on how it's couched.
Indeed. You know, we talked a little bit about this when you guys were here earlier in the show, and that is, this really all boils down to how this is filtered through the minds of those 6 jurors. We know that they're all female. We know that 5 of them are mothers. We know that 5 of them are white. And so, you know, it's so curious. Can you speculate, Pamela, about, say, for instance, how they processed Rachel Gentile?
Right.
You know, who do they favor in terms of what I call the dueling mothers, the testimony testimony of Sabrina Fulton as opposed to Gladys Zimmerman.
Right. I mean, I seriously believe that in America, everything is filtered through a prism of race and experience, and the credibility of the police officer. You know, he may come across as a lot more credible. Rachel may come across as a lot less credible, and it may not be a conscious bias, but just based on experience, familiarity, who you trust, who you think you know, all of that will come into play.
Yeah, I don't think we can run away from our own experiences in that regard. I want to bring someone else into our conversation. On the phone is the Reverend H.D. Rucker of the First Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church. He's one of a number of clergy that are in the trial, watching the trial, and they've been tasked to take the information that they see and learn back to their communities, back to their congregations, so that good factual information gets out there. Reverend Rucker, thank you so much for being here with us again. I know that you've been sitting in on this trial for a number of times during the course of it. Can you tell me what you have seen at first person and how that's different than what's being reported through the media?
Well, I'm kind of have mixed emotions, because some people I talk to seem to think that the prosecution has done a weak job, and then there's some feel that just the opposite. I'm not that deep into law, but I'm of the opinion that the state has presented the case pretty good. I'm thinking that manslaughter might be a better charge, but I hope the right verdict is given, and then I hope that the citizens will respect the decision that the six jurors make.
You say that you hope the right verdict is given, and I think I can guess what you think the right verdict is. Have you begun to prepare your congregation for what might happen if the quote-unquote wrong verdict is given?
Yeah, well, you know, through sermons and also to pastoral emphasis with my congregation, I'm trying to get us prepared for whichever way this may go. One thing that I mentioned to us a couple of Sundays ago is that we, in our society today, is so violent and disrespectful and vulgar until we have gotten away from what's called the brotherly covenant. That's where I am, my brother's keeper. And if Zimmerman had that in his mind, he would have approached Trayvon in a different way if he was concerned about what he was doing in that neighborhood. So, yeah, I'm trying, and other ministers that's in the Sanford Pastors Connecting organization, we're trying to get our people informed so that they will approach this thing from a very dignified way.
I know that one of the other roles of the clergy who have been chosen as a part of this initiative to be there in the trial is to also provide prayer and comfort for the families of both sides, the families of Trayvon Martin as well as George Zimmerman. Has either family reached out to you for comfort, prayer, support?
Well, no, what has happened, we're there, and that's what's puzzling to some people. They've seen me in the courtroom on TV, and then I get text messages from my parishioners saying, "What are you doing sitting on Zimmerman's family side?" And I have to let them know this is not a funeral, no, it's a wedding. This is a court that's going on, and we are we're sitting anywhere where there's seats available that's reserved for us, because the defense really did not want us, all four of us, the pastors, sitting in the same spot. So they wanted us kind of spread out throughout the courtroom. But we're there for both sides of the family if they need us. But so far, the Zimmerman family have not requested or accepted our service. And when we talk with the Martin family, they said right now we are okay. But thank you all for being here.
Sure. Reverend Rucker, I just wonder what your speculation is. How do you think the community of Sanford is going to react if, in fact, George Zimmerman is acquitted?
Well, you know, Sanford is a strange place. I've been there now 30 years as pastor. And one of the pluses that should have is that Trayvon Martin was not born in Sanford, nor did he live in Sanford. He was there visiting. Sanford really supports hometown boys and hometown people. So I think that's our favor for keeping things calm. I feel that if it's an uproar or whatever, it's going to come from someone who may come, some that may come from without boundaries of Sanford, but somebody else.
Yeah, we certainly hope that everyone keeps a calm, cool head no matter what happens. Reverend H.D. Rucker, pastor of the First Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, good. Thank you.
You know, it is going to be very interesting. This trial probably will, at least the arguments will end in the next couple of days, and then the deliberations will begin. So we'll talk to you again. Thank you to Paul Martin.
Thank you.
And to Pamela Newkirk.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate your insight. Thank you very much for joining us today. We hope that you join Arise America as we have our continuing coverage of the trial of George Zimmerman, the killing of Trayvon Martin. We'll keep you updated on what's happening with former South African President Nelson Mandela. Hope you have a great day. I'm Debbie Turner Bell. This is Arise America. Bye-bye.